Waiting for the recording to start, but yeah. So, like I said, in the second class, we talked about REST APIs, we talked about GraphQL, and then we talked about a little bit about I think I just mentioned it, RPCs. That is, RPCs are remote procedure control. Is it remote procedure control? Yes, I think it is remote procedure control. RPC is remote procedure control, right? Thank you. Thank you. So I did focus very heavily on REST, and I focused on GraphQL, and I showed you how to test REST APIs and GraphQL APIs. And me now trying to break down a little bit of REST now, right, for those that were not around, is that I said REST is what? Object representational what? State transfer protocol, right? It's a way of communicating between a client and a server that is a backend, right? And the backend contains the database using what? URL and HTTP methods. If you are just hearing this for the very first time now, so what you should be putting your mind on now is that what? REST, the two core key features for REST is what? URLs, right? And what? Your what? HTTP methods. URLs and what? Our what? HTTP methods. URLs and HTTP methods. So let me know once you can see my screen. I want to share my screen briefly, and then yeah, let me know once you can see my screen. I want to share my screen briefly. Can we see my screen though? Right. So if I go to here, you can see my ID, and you can see all the different screen I was sharing. Good. So I gave us a URL to just like this, and I said, like, if you go to api.oluwashitemi.dev, you would have a set of APIs that I've already worked on just for, just for your testing and for your knowing and all that. Do we remember? Do we remember? And I also said that here we have, when you get an API, if somebody gives you an API, I said that there is something that you need to first ask them. Who can remember? The moment somebody gives you an API, there is something that you need to ask, something very key and important that you need to ask, because that will become like your guideline to knowing how to use the API properly. Can anybody remember? I said every API must have what? A documentation, and it must have what? A place for you to test the API. Do we all agree? APIs must have what? API must have what? A documentation, and what? A URL, a playground, or something like Postman. How many of us have heard of Postman before? How many persons have heard of Postman before, right? Insomnia. Has anybody heard of Insomnia? Has anybody heard of Bruno? So those are different API testing tools that you could use to test your APIs, right? They must always be a place for you to test your APIs. And again, the API must have a documentation that explains to you how to use the documentation. And I said for the one I built here for you to just, for everybody to get, used to, I said if you click on what this reference here, that will take you to the documentation. And this is how the documentation, I mean, some of them, this is how they would look like. And I don't know if I mentioned this. If they did not give you, if they did not give you a documentation, but the backend might still give you, the backend might give you a what they call it what API, an open API JSON document. If you want to use that, if you want to use open API JSON document, you can always click on it here and then you will view it here. So what this is that what it is a kind of document that also explains to you what this whole API is all about. So it is similar exactly to this that you're looking at. This is just a version of that has GUI. This has GUIs and different things that you can move around. Whereas this here is just JSON. Do we understand? So it's either you get a URL to the documentation like this in the pretty format like this, or eventually you get the access to the JSON document that represents the documentation. So what you can do with this JSON is that you can then put this JSON in a software that is compatible. So click your postman accept this kind of JSON and will give you a playground for you to test the API. Does that make sense? Or should I show you how to take this JSON into a postman? Should I show you how to take this JSON document into a postman environment? Or that is not necessary? Okay, so we can save this. I think, I don't know whether we have this. We can save this copy and that should download one to my computer. And we can save that. And then I can open my postman. I think I have a postman that I can open the postman agent. And then it will attempt to open postman. It will attempt to open postman. Okay, so the agent is running, and then I can tell it to open postman for me, and then it will attempt to open postman and want me to sign in and all that. I don't know whether this is I can't even remember what my password is to this postman now. God's sake. For the sake of God. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what my password is. I think I'm just going to let me just use any one that let's just use this one. Let's see whether it's going to work. Okay. So this has opened up Postman, and then go to Postman itself. Just go to my account here. And this is what Postman looks like. I mean, I probably don't subscribe to using Postman again because Postman is a little bit slow and all that, but that's a story for another day. So these are a list of all the APIs that I have here. So I can see you can see this import button here. Import, and it will ask you that what do you want to import? So do you want to import I mean, anything you give to it here, it should be able to, I think you should be able to accept it. But let me click on this new as well. Let me click on new. And I think we can take HTTP. Okay, I think import is still our best shot. Import, and let me try to browse to select to upload a file. And if I go to downloads and then go to this here and open this here. So you can see that what it is trying to what? It is trying to add this particular what document as what api.oluwashikemi.dev, and then it can import it. So it will add it to what my collection, and then I have it here as collections here. And here I now have what all what a documentation that has what a list of what a list of what all the things that is going on within this API. Does that make sense? How to import now? Does that make sense? So you download the JSON of whatever API the backend sends to you as a front-end engineer. Then you go ahead and import it into your Postman, and then your Postman will then give you access to what all the things. So you would see that what this is task, product, post, analytics, auth, WebSocket, SSE is similar to the same thing that we have right on this page, right? So this is a much more better version, and then this is what the other version of this here. Does this make sense? Good. And now how do we get going? Here we can see that what I said that what REST APIs basically uses what URLs and what HTTP methods. If you are following me carefully, I said what REST APIs uses what URLs and what methods. Now, if you look beside here, these are examples of what HTTP methods. And then when you see what you see here, this is the path, the URL. This will be the base, and here will be what the URL to carry out what a specific operation. And if you look at it again carefully here, this is post. And I said post again is to create. If you have been paying attention, post is to create. And then we have what? Read. When you want to read something, we use the get to read. That is, you just want to read. You want to get to know what the current tasks available are, or you want to know the single tasks and their children, or you want to know what is task and what is respective children, or then we also have what patch or put to what to carry out what update. So when we are dealing with update, the method that is in question here will be what a patch and what a put. And anytime you want to update, you provide the ID of the document you want to update, and then the URL, and then it goes ahead and update it. And then we have what finally a delete that we can also use to what to delete any task if we want to delete any task. Does that make sense though? Does that make sense? The CRUD and their respective methods of operation. The CRUD, the CRUD of REST API and their respective what operation. Okay. Does that make sense, please? Before I forge ahead, does that make sense? Does that make sense? Is there anybody who okay, good. So now let's test what create, right? We go to the documentation, we click on what post, and then you study it. So it's telling us that what, oh, if you want to create a task, this is what you need here. You need to supply what name, minimum of 1, and what maximum of what 500, and it is what required. It is telling you that what the status is also required, okay? And it's telling you that what archived is going to be Boolean. You know, these are the list of what? These are the list of things that you can pass right to what to this API anytime you are trying to create. And after a successful creation, this is what the responses that you are going to be getting. So if it was successful, right, you get back what this response. If there was an error, you will get what a 422. Now somebody is confused and asking, what does this 200 and this 422 means? Is anybody thinking like that? Or do we have anyone who knows the meaning of the codes, the 200, the 422s, the 500? Do we know what those things represent? Do I have anyone in the class that knows what those things represent? As we have HTTP method, we also have what? HTTP status what? Code. As we have what? HTTP methods, what do we also have? We have what? HTTP status code. So those codes, they are referred to as what? Status code. That is, they tell us the status of what? Our what? Response, right? The status of your request. It tells us the status of your request. And somebody already mentioned in the comment that what 200 represent what? A successful what? Request, right? 201 represent what? Created, right? And then we have what? 400, which is representing what? A error, right? That is, it's the error that is caused by you, the user, right? And then we have 500, which is representing server error, right there. And if you want to know about all of these things again, you can read about HTTP methods is on MDN and what? Status codes. And there is an npm package that can return to you all the what? All the methods and all the status codes that is available. So here you can see that what you have what? The common what? You can see that we have what? The common methods here: get, post, put, delete, patch, add, options. And then you have this article on MDN that tells you, right, the response codes. So you can click on this article. It will also tell you that what? 1 to 199 represent informational responses, 2 representing what? Successful response, right? Redirection is 300, 400 is client error, and 500 is what? Your server error. And then you have an explanation into what each one of them is doing, is, and you have an explanation into what each one of them is doing. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Does this make sense? So again, I am saying as emphasis now that what? REST is built on what? The URL, the HTTP method, and what? Their responsive respective status code of that request. So if somebody asks you now, do you have an idea of REST APIs in general, in basics? Do we have something to say now, right? Do you have something to say? At least something to say. And again, if you want to test, what do you need? You need what? A documentation, right? And you need what? A place, a playground, right? A testing ground to test the APIs. Do I have any question? Do we have anyone with any question? Or should I move forward? Any question, or should I move forward? Okay, I think that has moved forward. Okay, so to test our creation now again right here, so it means that what? Again, this is what the status of 200 will look like, the data that was returned by 200, and this is the data that what 400 will look like. Again, and if you want to see the schema, right, you want to see the full schema, this is what the full schema looks like. And here beside it here, who can guess what this is doing though? Who can get what is doing here? This is code, right, in what? JavaScript to carry out what? That particular what? Post API call. So if you want to use Axios, right, this is all you need to make the API call. If you want to use what? Fetch, if you want to use OFetch, jQuery, XHR, anything you want to use, Node.js, or this is what exact what it gives us the exact code that can help us to what to carry that particular thing out. Should we try and go ahead and test the creation of a task? Should we go ahead and test the creation of a task? So if you want to test, you just what you can see the test here, or if you want to copy the URL, but we want to test, we'll go ahead here and test. And here is asking us that what? Supply the name, and then we can say what? Teaching extra class, right? Extra class. Okay, and then we can then send this out, right? We can send this out. And then you can see that what this particular record has been created, and you can see that what this is the ID that was created here. And then we can what? Take this here. I said something about, this is a very good question. Now I want to test you guys. I said something about UUID when I was teaching your class, last class on Friday. Can anybody remember? Do you remember? Honestly, do we have anybody that remember? Just one person that can remember. I said something about crypto.random UUID. Do we remember? I said that based on this UUID that I shared, there's a way to know the version of this UUID. There is a way to know the version of this UUID. What is the version of this UUID? What version is this? If you look at it again carefully, right? If you look at it carefully again, what is the version of that UUID that was created? And I said, what? When you see the first, the second, and the third, the first letter of that third entity will always tell you the version of the UUID that we are dealing with. Do we catch that gist now? Do you catch that gist now? Do we catch that gist properly now? That is, when you look at what the third entity, right, the third segmentation, the first letter of that third segmentation points to what? Points to what? There are other conditions too, but just for a starter now, this is the best condition that I can give to you to know exactly what the version of this API is. And so, sometimes it's necessary and sometimes it's not necessary. But I think because you guys are just gathering and building the foundation of your knowledge as engineers, as software engineers, it is important that I tell you at least the way to recognize the version of this UUID. Did we catch that? Did we catch that? All right. And I said there is what we have up to version 7. I think I said version 7 is the latest, right? Version 7 is the latest. And I think that I said there's an NPM package that you can always use to get the UUIDs. There is an NPM package that you can always use. I think you can always do npx UUID. I think so. npx UUID. If you just say yes, yeah, it will try to install this. This is the npm package. If you try to download this, it is this npm package that you can use to access all the versions of what the UUIDs that we have. You can see that what. So if you look at this again, you can see that it is returning version 4, version 4, version 4, version 4, version 4. Think, let me try Node. If I try Node here and I do require, if I do require UUID, let me see whether it's going to see UUID. Okay, it's not going to see it because I did not install it as an npm package. But if you want to know more about it, you can just do what? Go to what? npm and search for what? UUID. So if you search for UUID, right, it will give you the npm package for UUID, and we can see, and it will explain to us how to use all of them here. So it's possible for it to be able to do what? UUID v1. You can see UUID v1, and then what again? You can notice the one here. Can we see the one there for UUID v1? So here you have what? UUID v1 to what? To v6, right? So this is converting what? A version 1 UUID to version 6. So you can see again what 1 is here, but you can see the exact thing that is here. This is the version 6 equivalent. There is UUID version 3, right? UUID version 4, which is the default, right? There is what? UUID version 5, UUID version 6, and UUID, I think UUID 7 is not yet here, but there is 7 already that is existing. And you would notice that they are saying that RFC. So they are standards. These UUIDs, They are unique identifier that are standards, and it must be consistent. And that's why they are representing whatever one is representing in UUID v1, it must also represent the same thing in UUID version v6. It is very, very important to what for them to be consistent. It is very important for them to be consistent. Please and please don't forget, this is a foundational knowledge for you as a software engineer. Does that make sense? So back to the story of creation here. So this has created this particular record for us. But the interesting detail is what it took, what, 354 milliseconds. The size is what, 352 bytes, right? The method is what, 200, which is what, successful. Okay. Do we have cookies? No cookies was sent back. Do we have request headers? We have response headers. And if you look at this response headers, it has what, 23 response headers. And again, the response headers are important. You can see that what here, there is something called rate limiting. Rate limit policy, rate limit is 1,000, right? Remaining 99, right? It's reset after 100 seconds, right? It has what, all these what, HTTP what, response headers. And these headers again are very, very important because they tell us about what the response that was sent back. This is the response in itself. This is the header of that word, of that response. Again, this is what was returned for us. And if we go ahead and create what, 2, right, extra class 2, again it will create another one, and then we have what, that took a while. That is very, very wrong. I bet it's my Mozilla browser that is doing this. Is this for real? Can you guys still hear me though? Can you guys still hear me? I know it should not be the API. Can you guys still hear me? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So this took around 30 to what, 30 seconds. The size is 352. Again, it's 200. And then here. So if you want to see the error now, let's assume we want to see what the error looks like. If you send this, it will return an error. Why? Can somebody remember why it is returning an error? Because we said what, name is what, right, required, and what, the minimum acceptable is what, at least there must be one letter for what, for name. So you can see that what, this API has what, validation. If I delete all of this as well, another error will happen. Just works. If I delete all of this and let's say I put a letter here, I put A here, and I run this here, it will say that what, yes, now invalid what, non-optional received. So there is a particular part called what, there's a particular field that we're expecting called status, and status received what, invalid what, input. It is expecting what, non-optional, but it received what, undefined. So if I go and then I put status here now, and then you have what, status here, and you put this here. If you send this now, we'll get another error and say, now you're sending status, which I like, but status can only be what, either to do, in progress, done, or cancelled. So again, if I write done like this, is this the way it is expecting it? Is this the way it is expecting it? No. So you have to, APIs are very, very tricky. It has to follow the exact pattern of what it is what expecting. It has to follow what, and you will notice the method. What is the status code that is returned when it is going into error? 422. And the 422 represents what, unprocessable content, and then you can send this now and it's going to work. So if you want any of these fields to change, if I want it to be its default, if you want its default here, I think if I want it to be its default, I can say what this will be, what this will be true, right? Is default is true, and then you can send this as well, and you can see that what is default is true. So if you want archive to be true, you can send any detail here. So what I'm sending here is JSON, and it is the JSON of what the body, the JSON of the body. Let's say this API is supposed to upload file, then you can send a different part. You can send what the multi-part, or you can send what the URL encoded, or you can set what a binary file to that particular API. It is a JSON. You can send, some expect XML, right? Some expect what YML. There are different things that they expect, but the key thing is that this particular API is expecting what a JSON. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? And the same thing we did here, you can also do it within this particular place as well. So you go to task, right? And then it opens up, and then you can do post. You click on this here, and then what you are able to what to post a particular task here. And then if we, I think the base view variable in the request, the variable should be, the base API should be, this should be what the base URL should be, what http / what api dot what dot oluwashitemi dot what dot dev. And I think if you see it as this, edit it, update the shared value, right? And then so if I send this now, we should get a 422. If you send this now, you should get a 422, right? It is telling you that what start is what what's it called now? Start received invalid, end received invalid, children received invalid, right? So it's telling you that what completed also received what invalid. So you want to what send the right detail here, right here. So what is the detail that we're expecting here? We're expecting let's just cancel, let's just leave all of these out here, and then you can what again, you can always what, and then you can always send this out here, and then you can send this out, and then you can see that what this is what created. So whether you are in Postman or whether you are in any other what API environment, API client, the key detail is that what, so long as the URL matches, right? If this task URL match and the method match, then it will go ahead and carry out what the expected operation. And this again is the what the request body, and this is the request response, and this is the what the header that is being returned. And in this header, I pointed you towards rate limit. Rate limit is counting how many times we have made the request. It's counting how many times we have made what the request. So this will change to what 97. If I make it again, it will change to what to 96. And the max that you can do here is telling us the max is what 1000. The max is 1000. The max is 1000. So that is what creation. Now, for all of these that we have been creating now, if we want to like view anyone that we have created, we can copy their ID like this and go to what get. If you go to get here, you go to get. Postman is very slow. You can see that what it requires the internet for everything that it's doing, and which is not sustainable, right? So you can either pass what query params here. These ones here. Any question mark after a URL is called what query params. Any question mark after a URL, they are what they are query params. So all of these are what query params here, and then you can what you can, as I check them, you can see that as I check all of them, they are gone. They are gone. So if I send this now, this will return and fetch what all the tasks. You can see S here. It will fetch what all the tasks that we have in the database. It will go ahead and fetch all the tasks that we have in that particular what database. And what if you go back to, I don't know why it's taking this long. It should never take this long. So if you go back to, we're done with using this. If you go back to this particular one here, You can also fetch that by going to tasks, get of tasks here, and send this as well, and this will return what all the tasks. So you can see here it is returning it in what data, right? And then it is what returning what meta. And you can see meta is what information about what is returned. That is the total that you have in the database is what this. The page that we're currently on is this. The limit is 10. The total page is what, turn around this. Does it have next page? Does it have previous page? And again, you can say, okay, if the limit is 10, I want to change the limit to just what, 2. Right, and send again, and then this will just return what, 2 data, and then it will say what, now the limit is going to be 2, but the number of page have what, has increased. So this again, the reason why you have something like this is to what, to help you with pagination, Am I communicating? This will help you with what, pagination. Am I communicating? And are you understanding? So that is what, to help you with what. I don't know why this did not work here. Well, right, okay, it's working here now. So it's returning what, exactly what, the same data. So you can set what, limit on, and change limit to what, to 4 or 5, right? And then it will return 5 what result there for you. And if you want all the data from the database, if you want the pages, specific page you want, if you want to filter, or you want to fetch what, to-dos that are what, or tasks that are what, cancelled, if you want to fetch things that have what, priority of what, medium, or anything, right, you can quickly fetch the exact thing that you're looking for here. So you can fetch what, in progress, right, in progress. And then this will only fetch what, tasks that are what, in progress. It will only fetch tasks that are in progress. You can search. This will search what, the name and the description of that particular task. So again, this is a comprehensive explanation of what, just what, using what, the REST API. This is just one example. You will come in contact with lots of what, and thousands of API along your journey as a software engineer, and they will not follow almost the same pattern, but the key detail is to understand the foundational things that you need to look for anytime you're working with APIs. Also, if you then want to fetch what, a singular word, so here you come here, you put this here, and then we can now fetch what, this particular what, task. So it will fetch what, this particular task. I can update this particular, you can see that the name is string, right? I can then say, oh, let's update. You go to patch to update. And so let's update what, name and description, right? Let's update the name and description. Let's update the name and what, description. So the name is string, and we say what, this is string updated, right? And then we can say what the description is, that what, we are updating an API right there. And then if you press the patch here, add this value here, you paste this here, you send this here, it will not work because I didn't add it properly. Paste this here and press enter, and then send this now. So you will see that what, the name has been updated and what, the description has been updated. Does this make sense? I think I've dwelled a lot on REST here. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Again, does this make sense? Does this clarify everything you need to be familiar with your REST APIs? Okay, solid. Now, task is just a resource, right? On that API, there are other resource, right? On the API, there are other resources. So you can view products, right? You can create posts, right? Or you can, do authentication. If you want to do authentication, that is, you can register a new user, you can log in the user, you can refresh the user, you can get the current person that is logged in, or you can create WebSocket based resource subscribe to a particular thing, or you can create server-side event of a particular operation. So these are, list of things that this API can do here. These are just few stuff that this API can do. And again, this API has what, another version. You can see that what, this is the main API. So if you click on it again, there's another one, which is what, the beta hot. So this is another one for what, authentication. So I have two for authentication. This is another one for what, authentication. This is another one for authentication. And this one is for what, for complex authentication, right? It's what, for complex authentication. But the idea again is that what, they are just standard APIs for you, the front end, to get used to what the backend will be sending to you whenever you get a chance to work with what, a backend engineer. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Does this make sense to you? So you know how to play what with REST APIs. Any questions about REST API before we journey towards GraphQL, or should we just neglect GraphQL? Should we neglect GraphQL and do something more interesting? Everybody still remember GraphQL? Choop, 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 choop. Do we still remember GraphQL, right? I should not talk about it, okay? Should I go on to something else? Should we go on to something else? Please let me know. One person, two person. Nobody's saying something. It's okay. Should I take that as no? Okay, we should talk about it. All right. So for GraphQL, right, I also have a provision as well for you to test GraphQL. So Postman also gives us a way to test GraphQL. You will see that here it's asking us that what is it, HTTP or is it GraphQL? Is it AI? Is it MCP? Is it gRPC? Or do you want to test WebSocket? Or do you want to test socket.io? Or just tell me what you want to do and what your Postman can assist you to get up and go in here. And let's say we want to test GraphQL here in Postman, it will then ask you and say, okay, what is the base URL for that GraphQL? So I can say what the base URL here is http colon what forward slash what API dot what oluwashitemi dot what dot dev forward slash what GraphQL. And then if you want, you can see that automatically it is fetching what now? It is now fetching what all the things that this can do, and it is grouping them into query, mutation, and what subscription. It is grouping them into what query, mutation, and what subscription. Can we remember, for those who were around, for those who were in the class now, can you remember GraphQL and say like the key detail for GraphQL? Now, what is the key detail for GraphQL? GraphQL is what? Queries, mutations, and subscription. Whereas when we were talking about REST, what is the key detail for REST API? The key detail for REST API is what? REST needs what? A URL path or a URL, right? And it needs what? It needs what? HTTP what? Methods. It needs HTTP methods. And it also needs to tell you whatever status code that is going to be returned. Now, the method for GraphQL is always what? Post. The method for GraphQL is always what? Post. The method for GraphQL is always post. The method for GraphQL is what? Always post. And most of the time, you only get 200 as your what? As your status code. You only get for 200 as what? Your status code. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? And again, if you want to go to the GraphQL section of this documentation, here it says that what we have what the GraphQL endpoint, or you have what a playground. I think this playground should be enabled now. Yes, you can see what this is another place where you can test out what your GraphQL. So it will show you what the documentation, right? And then it will show you what it will show you documentation, and it can show you what the schema of what the documentation. This is very, very, very important. And we said what? Again, GraphQL is divided into three things: the queries, right? The what? The mutations, and what? The what? The subscriptions. GraphQL is divided into three major stuff, right? Which is what? The queries, the mutations, and what? The what? The subscription. What is query? Do I have anybody who is here and know what query represents? Do I have anybody who knows what mutation represents? Do I have anyone who knows what query represents? Do I have anyone who knows what mutation represents? What does query represent? What does query represent? In my CRUD, in our CRUD, what does query represent? Query in GraphQL represent what? Your get operation. That is your what? Your read what operation, that is what your query. So when you see query, query is representing what? Query represents what? Reading something, while mutation is representing what? Creating, updating, or deleting something. What did I say for mutation now? Mutation is representing what? Creating, what? Updating, or reading of what? A particular what? Information. Does that make sense? Does that make sense now? Abubakar, does that make sense? And then we also said what? Subscription is a way to now what? To do real time, to get notified when a particular thing happened. Subscription is a way to do real time to get notified when a particular what? Action happens. When a particular action happens. Subscription is a way to get notified when a particular what? Action or operation happens. And here, some of the subscriptions that we have here is that what you can get notified when task is created. You can get notified when a particular task is updated. You can get notified when what a particular task is what deleted. Something similar to what notification system within a simple web application. That is, oh, when somebody carry out a particular thing, please notify us. And that is what your subscription represents. And if you want to test your subscription, right, you can test your subscription using what this inbuilt subscription tester that I've built here. I also built this subscription testing tool alongside to what with this API. People will not give me my flowers. You will not say that I've built a lot of tools. I've built a lot of tools to make, like, to just make this thing easy for you when you are just getting started, right? So you don't need to really like be scared of APIs. You don't need to be afraid. Everything you kind of need to visualize what API looks like, I have made available for you in what that documentation. All you just need to do, again, your responsibility is to what? To please try it out, to please test it. That is the only thing that is expected of you. And I know some of you will still not test it out, but I am trusting that some of you will be diligent enough to spend 30 minutes, 45 minutes to test these things out so that you can what? Get used to what? To making APIs. So again, and again, let's just test one example of query. We'll test one example of mutation, and then we'll test what? Subscription, and then we'll see what subscription what sort of like looks like, and then we would see the example that we built the last time, and then probably we just move it to React, or maybe we'll just still continue with vanilla JavaScript version of it, whatever you suggest, right? I said that apart from using something that looks like this, if there is a particular GraphQL client that I personally like to use, which is what? web.altia graphql.dev. I like this one in particular. I like this one in particular. Right. Now, the difference between REST, can we really talk about the difference between Can we talk about the difference between REST and GraphQL? Is it obvious to you guys now, some of the difference between REST and GraphQL? REST allows us to use the different methods, right? But GraphQL only allows what? How many methods? GraphQL allows what? Just one method, which is post, right? REST support what? REST support, it needs a URL, it needs the method, and it needs what? Some status code, right? That is the base of operation of what? Of REST. While GraphQL needs what? What does GraphQL need? GraphQL only needs what? A query, a mutation, or what? A subscription. And its documentation is built inside. The moment you put it inside what, you notice that the moment I put it inside this playground, it automatically knew everything, the operation that I can do with it. It knows all the operation that I can do with it. So example here is that what, if I want to fetch a task here, I can click on what task here, just click on this to check this, and it will tell me and say, okay, this is all the things that you can do what with tasks here. And then we can query this, and then it will try to what, to return what, the result of this operation. This is going to be slow because you can see that what we are requesting what, all of the tasks that we have in the database. We're requesting all the tasks that you have in the database, and it's going to be a little bit slow, So you can see that what, this is what, it took 1.4 blah 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 blah, and the size is what, can you see this size? Imagine you're fetching this in a real application. Now this is too much, right? So what you want to do is that what I said what, another advantage of GraphQL is that what, it helps us to specify only the thing that we need. It helps us to specify only the thing that we need. Do we remember? So here, if I need only the ID, if I need only the name here, I can specify. If I need only description, if I don't need the ID and their name, I just need only description. I can only keep it like this and run this like this. Now, this will be a little bit faster compared to the other one. This will be a little bit faster, and what this will, what the size will be what, a little bit what, reduced. This will be a little bit faster, and the size will also what, be reduced in a way. But you can see that it's still taking long as well. But the idea is that what, GraphQL, you can specify the shape of the thing that you need, and then it can return the exact. So you can see here now that what, the size is now what, 100 and something kilobytes here, and it took what, close to what, 1 minute or one seconds to respond. So you can see here that what, these are what, all of the title, all of what, the descriptions of all the tasks in the database. These are all the descriptions of all the tasks in that particular what, backend. And if it's the ID that we want, right, we can specify the ID. And I also, for those who were around the last time, I said we can start doing operations, right? You can do some operations yourself here. You can say what, limit to what, you can limit to what, limit to maybe 2, right? And then you can send this out. So this is what you are limiting to, only what, give me 2 records and give me just their ID. And I can say, okay, add what, the name alongside for me. And this is why I like GraphQL. Honestly, for me, GraphQL is like beautiful because it gives me, look at the size now. The size is now 2 kilobytes. So it means that when you're building a particular product, REST will be returning all the things that you don't need, while you can always have GraphQL to return the exact thing that you need. I don't know if that makes any sense. Do you see the difference there? Did anybody see the difference there? That what, REST will return a lot of things that you don't need, while GraphQL can only return what, can return the exact data points that you need in your application. GraphQL can return what, the exact data point that you need in your application. Do we understand now some of the primary differences between GraphQL and REST API? Do we understand some of the primary differences between GraphQL and what REST APIs. All right, all right. Again, the core concept in GraphQL is what? The core concept is what? Query, mutation, and subscriptions. What are the core concepts in your REST? What are the core concepts in REST? The core concept in REST is what? We are dealing with what? The URL. You are dealing with what? Your HTTP status codes and HTTP methods. And what both of them are also built on CRUD, that is create, read, update, and delete, right? In REST, create is what? Post, right? Read is what? A get. Update is a put or part, and delete uses what? The delete what method. While in your what? In your GraphQL, right? All of the operation that is happening, they are all post, whether it is query, whether it is what, whether it is query, whether it is a mutation, or whether it is what, a subscription. All the operation that is happening is what? A post, and they are likely returning what? 200. And we also said that what? The documentation of GraphQL is inside of itself, right? So if you put it inside something like Postman, you would have access to what? To all the documentation like this. How many of us like GraphQL? How many of us are sold on GraphQL? How many of us are sold on the idea of GraphQL? You're sold. Do I have some fans that are sold on the idea of GraphQL? Okay, okay, all right. And subscription, maybe once we've done an example of query, let's do an example of what? Let's do an example of mutation. Let's do an example of mutation. What is mutation? Mutation is to create something, right? So let's create a task here. Let's go to what? Insert into task, insert into task, insert into T, right? Insert into what? A single. So if you want to insert multiple or you want to insert into a single, right? So you check this here and we can delete this one since we don't need this anymore. So you can see that what it has given me, what it has given me, what a sample of everything the moment I check insert into what? Insert into task here. And here I think it is adding multiple. We just need one valid one. So here you have what? Insert into task here, and the values is what? Null. So we want the values to what? We want name to have what? We want name to what? Open this here and say name should be what? What is the name here? Task created during what? Extra class via GraphQL. Yeah, GraphQL. Now, if you send this now, we all know that what this should what? Return some result for us. And then you can see that what this task was what created, and it returned back all this noise. So if we don't want all this noise, right, we can what? Take them out and just what? Return what? And this is the beauty again. You can say what? Just return what? The ID of whatever was created. Return the ID of whatever was created. I like GraphQL, honestly. You don't know how much I like GraphQL. I personally just like GraphQL because GraphQL sort of seems like it's kind of like simpler. GraphQL sort of seems like it's simpler because the documentation is built in. It's kind of simpler, and because of the categorization into like your queries and mutations and or subscriptions, it's it's a little bit simple right there. So I think you also have some other things you can play with this API. We have products, we have posts. You can go ahead and create as many products as possible just to test out this API to see your understanding of what this API. You can register. There is even say hello, right? Just to play with API if you want to say hello. Yeah, you can say hello, say hi. I mean, these are just beautiful stuff, honestly. These are beautiful stuff for you to get used to what API looks like. So you can see that in this mutation here, I'm sending two operations. This is another thing that GraphQL can do. It allows us to send multiple things together, whereas you can't do that with REST. You can only carry out a particular thing, a particular action. No, just give it to GraphQL. GraphQL is very, 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 it has a lot of advantage. A lot of advantage. You will probably see online, they will say there is what overfetching and underfetching. Overfetching is that when REST API returns some information that you do not need, while underfetching is that what it returns information, like it can return information that is also below what you need, right? But GraphQL solves that problem, because with GraphQL again, you can get the exact information that you need. You can go ahead and get the exact information that you need. And the last one is what subscription. If we want to test out what subscription. And to test out subscription, I'm not sure whether it's going to work here, but let's try. It should ask me for some detail or some configurations. I'm just going to try it out. It's going to work. Okay, I think it will work. So let's try subscription out and let's see if it's going to work. So I want to click on task created and subscribe to that. So now it is what? The WebSocket connection has been established. So it means that if I go ahead and create any task, right, we should be notified here. Let's go ahead and do this here. Let's see if we go ahead and create this task again. Let's send this now. Let's see whether it works. So this was done here. Let's look at this here. So you notice now that what this information came in here to tell us that what this task was created. And you see that we did not reload, right? And that's a subscription for you. Subscription is like magic. It happens real time, right? It happens real time. It happens real time. Again, let's check our subscription playground that I built here. So let's subscribe to what? Task created. Subscribe to task created now. We go back to our API here. You go to task again here. You create another post. Let's create another task here. So if you go to the playground here, you would see that what this task with this particular ID has been what created. And then if you go back to what our subscription tab here as well, the second one came in here. I mean, this is beautiful. So subscription looks like that notification that you have in your iPhone and Android. How many of us know, notification just flies into your phone without you reloading, without you doing anything, right? That is what subscription looks like. Does that make sense? Do you get a picture of what queries are in GraphQL? Do you get a picture of what mutations are? And do you get a picture of what subscriptions are in GraphQL? This is the first time you are seeing subscription. Can you say hi? Can you use thumbs up? This is the first time you're seeing subscription in action. Really? Really? Okay. I am lost. Do I have anybody that is lost though? In all the things I've been saying so far, you are lost. Anybody who is lost? Or your head is hot? Your head is hot. Your head is hot. Like, this is too much. And somebody's saying, like, how does one person know all of this? How does one person know all of this, right? Don't overthink it. I didn't know this 1 year, so this will not also, you won't know this fully like in 1 year. But what I am doing, my job is to show you, to let your eyes see it, so that your brain can also have an idea of what this thing is all about. I don't know if you are following me carefully. I am triggering that curiosity in you guys to let you be aware of these little concepts that are key for a front-end engineer. Are you paying attention, please? So it is not about knowing all of these 100%. Knowing this 100% is difficult because I know I only have 2 hours to just do this to show you, to teach you. But this can be the beginning of what? The transformation for your career, because this will set a good foundation for your journey that is yet ahead. And that is why, like I said, it is at least very important for everybody to be to at least find a way to attend or find a way to watch what the playback of many of these online sessions, because there is a lot of gem in these classes. There is a lot of gems in these classes, things that we cannot even talk about in our main class. So in summary, right, we've refreshed the idea of REST APIs. We've talked about GraphQL again, right there. Maybe I can just mention RPC. RPC is just a function that can run on the server. That's what RPC represents. And I'm still looking for a way to create a way for you to test RPC. Right. You still can't see my screen. Can you see where we are chatting? Can you see the Google Meet screen? Can you see the Google Meet screen, Karima? Can you see the Google Meet screen? For information's sake. Can you see the Postman screen? Can you see my browser now? It could be the internet as well. Is there anybody like Karima who cannot see my screen? Or do we have anybody in that same situation who can see my screen? Nobody? Permission to stop sharing and at least try to share again. Let me try to share again. I've stopped sharing, right? And then I'm trying to share again now to see if you guys can see. How about now? Karima? How about now? Yeah, it could be the internet. So what you just want to do is just to try to find a way to adjust the internet, maybe change location or find the best spot for your phone or your modem or the internet device that you're using. But everybody, is the screen sharing back for everybody? Is the thing back for everybody? Okay, good, 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 good. All right, before I move to the next phase of maybe so I was saying something about RPC, right? I was saying that RPC, I'm still finding a way for me to be able to teach or show you RPC, but the key detail that I want you to know is that RPC is just like a function in your JavaScript that is stored online. So it's like somebody will write one function and store it online, and then you can call it. And that's why they usually call it what? Remote procedure control. That is, it is in a remote place, but it's just a procedure. It's just a function that you can call somewhere. So we have different examples of them. We have gRPC. gRPC is one of the most popular one, right? It's a framework for building APIs, right? I think it's built on Go. I think it's built on Go. I don't know what I think it's built on Go, if I'm sure, right? It's used by Netflix, it's used by Square, so it's a big deal. So it supports Go, C++, Java, and the languages. So these are the list of languages that what it supports, right? And then we have what? TRPC, which is what? The one that is for us, that has a little bit of JavaScript, right? This is the one for JavaScript or TypeScript engineers, right there. So again, this is what TRPC, but you can see that what it will just what be a function that can carry out what a particular thing, a function that can carry out what a particular thing, a function that can carry out what a particular thing. But it is built on TypeScript. It is built on TypeScript. It is built on TypeScript. So you declare what the type is going to be, you do the initiation there, and then you what once the router is set up, you then create what this procedure. So this is the procedure that returns what the user list. And the key is what it is heavy heavy TypeScript, and it does a lot of validation. It does what a lot of validation. And then the other one that is also new is what we have, what the cap and web is a new one, RPC. Um, I think this one is created by Cloudflare. This cap and web is created by what? Cloudflare. Is a new RPC system for browsers. I've not used this before, so I don't know much about it. But this cap and web is also what a form of RPC to carry out what a particular action. So this is what it looks like here. This is to show hello, and it will do hello. It has support for what for WebSockets and all these other cool features right there. So again, RPC is just a simple function that runs what a particular thing, right? That is RPC. It's just a simple procedure, whether it's a function or it's a class that does a particular what thing, and that is what RPCs are. Does that make sense a little? Does that give you a little insight into RPC? Does that give you a little insight into RPC and the several examples that I mentioned? So whether it is what the gRPC or the tRPC or the cap and web by Cloudflare. All right. So I think before we go a little bit further, how many of you saw the new in Node.js kind of documentation that I shared on the community app? How many of us saw that? How many persons saw that the Node.js documentation thing that I just worked on and shared on the community app? So I'm just going to show it, and the reason why I want to show it again is because I believe that I don't know, but this is my belief though. My belief is that many of us don't eventually know how to even use terminal, right? I believe that some of us don't eventually even know how to use terminal, right? You are here, you are still struggling with usage of terminal. You are here, you're still struggling with what terminal usage. You're here, you're still struggling with terminal usage, right? You're here, you're struggling with terminal usage. So this is the thing I just dropped here. I've been working on it for quite a while. It's a lot more. So the idea is that especially a Windows user might struggle with terminal. You can see here you have ls, right? You have what? mkdir, right? New, right? Okay, it's disabled. Then I can create it. So they've disabled mkdir here. So I can create one. I think I can create one. I don't want to. But the key detail here is that this is just like a terminal for you to just get used to the ideas of terminal, majorly all the key concepts of terminal, all the key concept of terminals, right? This is the idea here. They've also disabled touch as well. I think I need to hack this, how to enable. Let me ask the AI though. Let me ask. So again, the reason why I've made this available is for your learning, right? For those of us who don't know what Node.js is, you don't know how to, you don't even have idea of Node.js at all. You don't even know whether you have it installed. This is supposed to be your safe landing to guide you into that process. Please and please just check it out and see whether it's helpful or not. If I don't want to switch, um, so if I say, let's say if I do, let's go to the terminal and do sudo, let's just do sudo bash. Okay, sudo 2 is disabled. Sudo is disabled. Maybe when I was creating this, there's something I should have. There's a command that I should have enabled that I did not enable. So most of the major terminal commands are kind of like disabled in a way, but I probably will find a way to enable. I'll find a way to enable them back, right? But like I said, you can go to what, just read to help you. Then you can go to what, the next page. You also get to read, and you can run the code yourself. So again, here you can, I think you can clear. You can clear and say node index dot what dot js index dot js. So just to see what is going on right there. So you see exactly all the things that is going on, and you can delete. Again, this is why this things is very useful. You can delete it, right? You can delete it and leave only one, right? You delete and leave only one and run until you sort of understand what and what how to run things with Node.js. So this again, this particular documentation that I'm working on is supposed to help you, to give you a confident ability to work with Node.js and terminal related stuff as much as possible. You can also do npm install. I think you should be able to do npm hi react here. Okay, npm is disabled. So I think there's a particular command that I did not pass. That's why many of these commands are disabled. So I probably need to know that commands. So I will find a way to let you know how to use this better. So this explains modules. You know, I think for those who are following class very well, we've explained module, export, require, and all these things. We've talked a little bit about fetch and some of these things, but these are pure JavaScript or Node.js stuff that are quite essential, that are quite essential for us to have what some understanding about, especially as front-end engineers. You will see that I'm saying it's just for your foundation, things that you need to have idea of for your foundation purpose. I'm giving you a lot of things to read. I'm giving you a lot of things, and there are exercises, right? There are exercises that you can do to also help you to be able to do. And you can reset as well. I think you can reset. There's a way to reset, and you can open them in Start Blitz. That's the beauty. I can't remember how to reset again. There must be a way to reset. I think, yeah, you can reset. Yeah, you can reset. So you can reset, and then you have what, all the commands back again. This will help you to get used to what, to Node.js. Do we understand? Do you understand that part? Do you understand that part? So again, the purpose of sharing that with you is to just get you to know how to run stuffs on the Node.js side of things. All right. So now, the last time we built something, for those who were in class, we sort of built something and we hosted it on, I think we hosted it on Netlify and Parcel. How many of us can remember? We hosted something and we built it on, I think we hosted it on Vercel, if I'm very sure. We hosted it on Vercel. It was a vanilla JavaScript stuff that we built. We built something to this is what we did in class, but this is what we did in the last time. We built something to make API call to what? To the base URL api.oluwashitemi.dev, right? It's fetching what? Products, limiting to 20, and then we were using vanilla JavaScript to render what? To render, and then we were about going into the concept of what? Pagination. Can we remember? For those who were here, can we remember? So let's just run this, right? Let's just run this real quick on the terminal, and we can do npm, or let's just do d. I think if I do d dev npm run dev, we'll run vit, and then we should have localhost 5173 running. Should have localhost 5173 running. All right, so 5173. So let's do it like this. So I have localhost 5173 running. Let's come here. Localhost 5173. And with this 5173, you could see that what we had this small application here that is fetching all the products, and it was trying to set up the pagination. So this next is not working, right? And this is something that what we did with Vanilla. Should I walk us through how this application works? Should I walk us through the application, or should we just go to create a React version of this? Should I walk us through what is going on there for those who have seen it for the very first time, or should we go ahead to do the React version of this? Class, should I walk you through what is going on, or React version? Okay, somebody said React version, and somebody said walk us through what's going on. Okay, two. Let's see one more response. If one person can give us one more response, and then that would determine what we are going to do. Should I walk you through, or we go to the React version of this? Who's going to be our savior to save us time? Save us time. Okay, good. All right. So here, we kind of have let's take this particular component class here out of the way. So here we have we're importing styles here. We are creating base here. We are getting our app from our index.html. We're not even using this, but we are creating a div here. And then we are setting the text content of that div to be loading. And then we have a product UL, right? We are creating this on the fly. And what we are doing is we are appending the product div, right? This. So you will notice that when you go to the application for the very first time, you would see that what you were seeing is loading. You will see the loading, right? So it means that while it was making the API call, while it will be making the API call, we're showing the loading, right? And the loading is handled by this line here. And then we now set the basics on say, okay, the current page is page 1, the total number of pages that we have, the limits that we are trying to work with is 20, then the ask next page variable is false, and ask previous page is false here. Then we create our pagination buttons. We'll create a div, right? And then we call it pagination button, and we so this is the button for previous, button for the button for their own loading as well, and then we have the button for their own next as well. And I think when we now we can also append the pagination. And another thing is we can also wait before we append pagination, right? We can take this to only happen. You can take this to only happen when the API has been successful. Right, you can only make this when the API has been successful as well. So if you refresh the page, you go back to this page, we refresh this page here. If you refresh the page, you see it's loading, right? And then what else? Oh, I think I know where the problem is now. I think so. Let's see. We are depending on something. We're depending on something in this page. Let's just undo that. Let's undo that somewhere. We're depending on something. Let me refresh this again to be sure. Yeah, I think. So we're depending on something to be existing on the page, right, in one of the codes that we have. So here, this is the pagination. This loads the raw pagination, but it's not the correct pagination because it still needs the information from the API. So here, we are making this API call here. Now, when you see this dot then and this dot then, what does that point you to? When you see dot then, what does that point us to? Dot then and dot catch. What does that indicate, class? When we see dot then, what does that point us to? Dot then. When we see dot then, what does that indicate? When you see dot then, dot catch, for those who have been coming to the extra class, what does dot then, what point us to? Dot then, what does that point to? Dot then and dot catch. Anyone? Anyone, please? Dot then and dot catch. What does that point you to? Nobody? Nobody? So it first points us to what? To a promise, right? And then it now cat tells us that we are trying to handle the error in the promise, and dot then means that we are trying to continue or to process the fulfilled promise. Again, if you don't know, it is because there was a particular extra class that we talked about that you probably missed. Please and please try to catch up. Do you see how gaps can be in our knowledge now? Do you see how plain there can be gaps in our knowledge? If you miss a particular thing, it will affect what another part of what we're supposed to teach. And now just the understanding of promises here. So I'm not sure many of us even know async and await. If we cannot really point out promises, how am I sure that we all know what async and await is? So please, I don't know how, but please and please find a way to catch up and watch the replay of that class. And if you still do not understand, then you reach out to me and let me know so that I can assist you. How many things do you want to reach out back to? Because I usually say a lot of things when I'm teaching. Do I mention a lot of things when I'm teaching though? Honest. Do I mention a lot of things when I'm teaching? And if I do mention a lot of things when I'm teaching, how do you keep up? Is there anybody? Do you write down? Do you write down or do you note them down? How do you note down all the things I mentioned that requires you to check something back in class? I'm curious to know though. I'm very curious to know. Okay, somebody said they take notes. Okay. I note down with a red pen and read on them. All right, beautiful. So here, when we make this fetch call here, this is using products. We could as well change this to task. This is, I said anything after question mark is called query parameters. Do we remember? I said anything after question mark, they are called what? Query params. And then you would also see that, look at me, Seth, look at me, look at me, look at me. If we append pagination button here, this place here is where we are doing the query selector back. So it means that even if I want to move this, right? Even if I want to move this, I can move all of them together, right? I totally forgot that I can move all of them together and it will now work as I expect it to work. So if we refresh now, refresh, a simple loading, yeah, we'll have a simple loading. And then once the data is available, it renders the product. A simple loading, and once the data is available, it loads all the data. A simple loading, and once the data is available, it loads everything back. And what is everything that is loading back again? The key detail of what is being displayed is that what it is. Everything that is being displayed is returned in this data.data. This data.data.for each is getting a singular product. We are trying to extract the image because some of the images they are inside array, some of them are not inside array. So we are trying to do some magic to extract out what. So you can see here that what if type of image is a string, right? Do the JSON.parse of it, right? Or just use product.what.image. And then if you now have the array, right, get the first thing inside of the array as the product.what final image, or just use what product.what image. And here we are creating what image element, and then you're setting what the src, and then we're setting the what the halt, right? And we're setting what we're adding what a class what list. We're adding a class to the image. And here we're also creating the product item, right? We are creating a div, and then we're adding product item on it, and then we are appending the image to the product item. We are appending what the text node for what the name of that thing. So here this is creating what a text node for the document for the product name, and you are appending what that product item to the product list, and eventually we are appending what your product what list into the product div. And you know that the product div was what? What's our product div? The product div before is what? This product div before was what? This loaded, right? So what we did is what? We set that product div back to what? Once our data is ready, we set it back to the empty string. And now we are now appending the image and the text node that we now have for the product that we are fetching. And in case there's an error also, what we want to do is that what we can duplicate this. If there's an error, right, we take this into this place. Product.text content is what we can say what there's an error here. Error failed to fetch what products. And then we can what delete this line here. So let's say I add something to this API that I'm not supposed to add, and it's not going to work. Like this, I put 2 here, it will not work. And if we go to our page, right, we should see what error failed to fetch product. Do we understand this, or you still have questions? Do you understand this, or do you have questions? Do you understand this basic walkthrough, or do you have questions? Do you understand this, or do you have questions? Anybody, anyone who has questions, please don't be shy. Please, you can raise your hand if you have a question. There's the walkthrough is not clear, all good, right? Okay. So again, please and please, if you have questions, please don't hide it from me. Just ask me as it is. I'm almost done. I know I have 10 minutes left, and then we can all be on our way. Right. Good. So what do you think the next thing to do is? Should we make the pagination functional, or should we? I think what I was thinking is that we could break down what we have. What we have now is very, very rough. It works, but it's very rough. We could break it down into functions, smaller functions, and make it look a little bit clean, right? Because the fetching of this API is a constant. Fetching of the API is a constant. We can put that in a function. The creating of what? This whole line that creates what? The whole line that creates the product, and append it is also one function. So it means that what? I can take this this particular line here of what? Data here. We can always we can always create what? If I cut this out now, right? If I cut that out of the picture, right? And I can do what? We are replacing that with what? A function. So this will be what? A function to what? To create what? The product and what? Image. A function to create the product and image. So outside here, we can then have what? The function will take what? The function create, let's say, product display, right? And then it can take a data, right? And then we have this here, and then we can return, right? Just return the whole thing, right? Is it return the whole thing? Or just return, no, let it carry out, this here. It's going to carry out this whole operation here, and it's just going to return the product, what? The product list. It's just going to return product, what? Product list right there. So it means that if you go back to this function here, right, we can just come back here and call that same function and say what? Display, product display, and pass it what? Pass it what? The data that what we have. Where is this data coming from? The data is coming from where? The API, right? You can see that the data is coming from what? The API. And if you go back here, it will still work as is expected. It will still work as it's expected. Okay, I think we need to change the error, right? Take these two out here and go back to our API right here, and it's still working. So you can see that what all we just did was what? We just broke down a little bit to make it clean a little bit here, nothing too special. So the creation of what? The creation of the HTML, right, of the product is happening within this function. And then you can always what? Hide it here, and it looks a little bit clean here. Also, the detail of what? The pagination, updating the pagination, because that's another consistent thing here, because here it will always what? If you look at it here, once it makes the API call here, it will always what? It will always try to what? It will always try to, this is disabling what? This is the function that disables the next button, or so here the next is disabled if there is what? If next button is, if there is next, if there is no next, sorry, because if it asks next here, this is where we should fetch again the API call. And if it does not have next here, we are supposed to what? Carry out what? Some disabled here. The same thing with this previous. If there is previous, right, to carry out what? Some previous operation, you fetch the what? The previous API data, and here you have what? You can also disable here. So what I want to do next is that what I want to create a simple function that can basically just fetch. So something like what this is doing right here, what this is doing, where it just fetches something, we can create a function to just do that. So again, pay attention to that. I will say function what? Fetch what? Just say fetch what? Product, right? Based on what? Maybe based on a particular what? A particular page, right? So based on a particular page that you pass to it, right? And then it's going to what? Carry out fetch. And here you can now append what? We can now append what? We can append our fetch here. I think we can just return this here, return this here. And this here is what? This here is I think we can just leave it like this, or just return data.data. I think we can also tell it to return data.data, return the data.data, because that's where the operation is. Return the data.data. We also need some pagination stuff as well. So let's just return data like this. So we don't need this line like that there. So it means that anytime you have then we are not using this page. So it means that to use this page here, we can bring it here and say hand, right? Template literal here, right? The template expression, and then you can say what? Page. You can say page is equals to what? Page is equals to what? Page. So if page is equals to page here, it means that what? To call this function here, right, for the next year, it means that what? For this next year, I then need to what? To fetch, right? Fetch product and pass it what? The next page, right? The next page that we are talking about, which is supposed to be what our current page. What's our current page now that we are working on? It will be what your current page plus what plus one, right? So it can be what here, it will be current page plus what plus one. So this will always what carry out that operation, and then you can always have what our result here as well. And here we can now again process the result, right? Process what the result. That is, process the result means that what replace, because we need to replace again our what the product div with our new product. So, and since we already have what a function that is helping us with with that, so it means that what we can now say that what create display, I think, is it product display now? Product display, right? And then what will it take? It will take what our result, which is the data, and then it will also try to generate a new set of information. And also now we need to now update the page. The pagination has to change on the page. So if we do this for us next year, then we also need to do this for previous as well here. I don't know if that makes any sense. Let's go ahead and test this. Let's just do this. Why are we failing? Let's see. Let's inspect to see, to understand why we're failing. Cannot access data is undefined. Data here is undefined. I think let's just, if I comment out this. Oh. Okay, I think I know where the issue is. I know where the issue is. Let's reload back and make this work. This would work here. So it means that what here next will only happen when we click on this next button. Right, we only want next to only happen when we click on this button. So it means that what we need an event listener, right, to click on what next button. So it's like click what next button. So it means that we need to get the next button here and say next button dot on click, right? If you want to use something like this, right? If you want to do something like this, dot on click is equals to what a function to handle the whole process. And it is inside of this process here that all of this information should happen. And the same thing here. So here, let's fetch this operation, and let's display that operation first to be sure that all of this is what is happening. Result here. So let's just comment this out to see what is being logged anytime you click on this operation here. So here we have this displayed here, and if you click on next here, so here is returning promise here, and this should not be promise. So it means that it's not returning the right thing. Is returning the right thing. So if we want you to return the right thing here, maybe we can do async and await here. Nobody says we cannot do async and await. Yeah, we can do async and await here. This function here is saying that this can be converted to an asynchronous function, right? Convert it to an async function for me, and then it has been converted to an async function, and we can go back to here. Where is the page where we are using it here? So to use that function here, you also need to await it here, right? And to do await here, you have to do an async here before you can do an await here. So now, if we try to run it back again now, let's see. Let's click on the next button here. So you can see now that it is returning and logging the operation, and we should have data.data. been processed for us here. So it means that what you can then use this again to now render whatever thing that will be displayed. So here you click on this, and then this will render this. So you can see now that you have the information below it here. And we need to now find a way to update the pagination. So this should now change to 2 of 26, and our previous need to be to be enabled. Have I gone too much? Have I gone too much? I'm enjoying it already. I'm enjoying it already. But then, are you guys flowing with? And this is just vanilla JavaScript. So you can see that we're just still using vanilla JavaScript, just pure JavaScript to make API calls, to do pagination, and then to see the result of what the operation that we're having. Is he interesting, or am I the only one enjoying it? Is anybody learning? Is anybody enjoying it? Or you are lost? Lost but found. Lost but found. Nobody's talking. Nobody's talking. Come on, guys. Let me know. Let me know. Let me know. Let me know. Okay, is this still David? What do you think? Is he? Is he still on point though? It's a lot to take in. Floating. Okay. I like that. I like that. Don't worry. It's okay. So again, if you look at, again, my goal is my end goal is I have this simple project here that I'm trying to fetch some list of products from a particular API, and then just display the image of the product right there. Right. And here, I've already been able to do that here to run through the function that is doing that for me is I have a function here that is making and fetching the API calls here. And I have another function here that is helping me to display whatever new thing or whatever information that we have here. And so if you look at this again, this is the function that you probably have a lot of business with. It takes a particular data, and then it will look through the data, create new image HTML element, and create a text for our product, and append everything to the inside product list. And then it is returning the product list. So this one is like it will take the data from the API and return a div that contains, it will return a UL that contains li of each of the image and the text of the product right here. And that's what this product display is doing. And this other function here is a function that I can, an asynchronous function that I can give, right? And I will give it a particular page, and it will go ahead and fetch that particular page that I need to fetch for me. And this here is the first one, the base one, right? It's fetching 20 records, right? It's fetching 20 records. And when it fetch 20 record here, it is it is this is where my pagination buttons are being appended. Okay, good. Here is where it is it's trying to update the pagination, right? That is, if there is a Axe nest coming from the API, you can see data.metal Axe nest is true. Then allow me to add an add event listener that can also fetch the next page and also display the product alongside. So that's why I said on click here, make the API call here to current page plus plus 1. And so here we just even need to set we just need to even set current page to current page to will now be will now be 2 right there. Or we can just even do, you can even do that here. The moment you click this here, you can just ask, I think it's a const. Is it a const? Is current page a const? Because it's a let, or just say it is plus 1. Just say plus equals 1. I think that solves plus equals 1 solves the problem here. So we just fetch with current page here, and it fetches the next page. And after it fetches the next page here, this function on 57 processes it. The function on 57 processes it, and it renders the update. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So when you have something like this here and we click on next as well, it will make the API call and fetch the next set of information and render it. And here again, click on next again, it fetches the next one again and again and again and again, and it keeps fetching the next one and again and again and again and again and again and again. So that is what that is a little bit of a little bit of the next button, the next button, the next button. There's an error somewhere, but I don't know which one. I think one of the API calls failed. Yeah, one of the API calls failed. So one of the product does not have image. So one of the product that was returned does not have image, and then it's breaking. Yeah, it does not have SRC. I think it's probably so. And I think if I check this data very well here, I would see a particular image here that is empty or something like that. And I need to find a way to handle such situations here. And that's the thing with APIs. APIs will be rough and dirty and all that, but it is you, the engineer, that has the responsibility to be able to clean up the API, to make the API what makes sense. So just in final closure or closing here. But again, you kind of, this would let you understand the kind of task that you come in contact with when you are a front-end engineer. Is this opening your eyes to the kind of tasks that you should expect when you're a front-end engineer? Right. So this again is what some of the things that you get to see is the API is there already. Somebody is giving you the API to fetch the API, and then it gets you ready for what you expect already. So I think here we can also handle the I don't know whether we can handle the, are we displaying the current date? I want to handle the previous situation. I don't know whether we should handle the previous situation. So this is showing 1 of what, 26. So if I think what we can do is JSON.parse. This is the JSON.parse that is giving me problem. So if the JSON.parse, just put a try and catch. There's a try and catch here. I can do a catch on this JSON. Where's the JSON.parse? There's a particular JSON.parse that I was doing. Here I'm doing a JSON.parse. Is it inside this place where I'm doing a JSON.parse? I think it's inside this place. This is the line that is breaking. Because based on my error, you would see that this is the only place, 87. So you would see that what it is breaking on cut, happening, syntax error on what, 87. So if this is failing here, so it means that I need to console.log at least to see console.log whatever product.images product.images is here that is causing that particular failure. So it will log a lot of things though, but it's okay, it will be worth it. So if we click on next, let's clear this so that we are able to see. Click on next, it fetches the next set of things, right? Also clear these as well to see the next one. Fetch this, and now okay, I think it's still perfect, it's still working. Let's delete this as well. Then let's fetch this one out. That's what should break. So you can see the situation that is causing the breaking now. So some are coming back as empty right there. So what we want to do is that if it's coming back as empty, just set it to be what? Just set it to be empty string. Or just do a, or I think the only way how is to put a try and catch somewhere here. Just do a try, curly braces here, run this into the catch here, and then if this kind of like fail, we want the catch to kind of help us to catch that and say in case if there's an error, right? Just do product dot images to be what? product dot what, product dot image to be what, empty string for that particular thing, and that should help us to move out of that problem. So let's just refresh the whole thing and just keep pressing next. 1, right, 2, right, and then 3, and then so you can see that what for the empty array now is no longer breaking, right? And then it's not breaking again. Yay! It's not breaking again. Yay! Because we've created a defense mechanism to help us to handle that particular situation. Right. So another thing that you can see is what I think this is the first time probably some of you are seeing try and catch here. How many of us are seeing try catch for the very first time here? You can see that the try and catch is what is now coming in as a way to help me to catch my own error, because I am the one who is doing the JSON.parse. Right, so it is my responsibility now with what the try and catch to help me to catch what the error. So I think another thing that we should do now is to update the number of page, right, the pagination. So where we are displaying our page, it should be somewhere here where we are what we are getting one of, I think we are setting one of, this is where we are setting the text of what there's a place where I'm setting. So this is the place where we are setting what this here. So we can take this again here and use this to what turn this into a function that can update what our page. So again, you can say it's a function and say update what, update pagination data, and then you open your curly bracket like this, and then the action is supposed to carry out is something that looks like this, and it's supposed to accept whatever the current page is, and whatever our total pages is, then this should handle it here. So I'm going to take this here and call this update pagination inside here. Where's my next here, where we are calling here and say what update our page here. So update, we can update pagination data here and pass it our current pass it our current, and then we still have our total page to be what our total page is here. And this is pure JavaScript here, in action, pure JavaScript at work. So if we go back to application and then we run the application again, you can see that it is 1 of 26 now, and then we should have 2 of 26. Okay, so this is not coming through. Page number span is not defined. Oh, what did we bust? We bust into an error here. So it's saying that page number span is not defined. So we can even pass the page number span as well and say, is that how we do the query selector here as well? Let's see, where's the query selector of page number span? So let's just copy and put a copy of this in here. I mean, that's wasting of resource though, but it's still perfect, or it's still valid. It's going to work fine. So that I put it as as a parameter to my function. I think putting it as a parameter is a little bit better, so that we don't recreate what is already existing. So I can comment this out, and anytime we are calling this function now, we'll call it with what? We call with page number span, and then this should handle the whole process. So if we go back here and refresh the application, and then we quickly run this here, and then we should see 2 of 26, right? 3 of 26, and now we also need to update our previous button. So again, I don't know, another thing is, I don't know if you notice how I am doing it step by step. Can you pay attention to how I am solving it step by step? Can you pay attention to how I'm solving it step by step, right? It's not like I'm just jumping and I've crammed everything. No, it is gradually. You are kind of approaching what needs to be done next. You are identifying what needs to be done, and you are definitely solving it. And the thing that we are doing that is making it to come together is that we are putting some of them in functions so that they can be reusable for our need. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So we can also what, again, go back to the code and try to what, we need to now say that what, now if we are more than what, if the page, if our what, if current is greater than 2, because anytime our current page is what, if current page is greater than what, is greater than, is greater, is equal, greater or equals to 2, right? Then we can say that what, our button here, which is what, our previous can be enabled now. Prev button can now be what, can be what, prev button dot enabled. Maybe let's just put it in a curly bracket so that what, we can understand. Prev button dot enabled dot disabled or something can be what, can be true, can be false, sorry, can be false, right? And what else did we set again? Now I set disabled, and then we are adding disabled here. So let's just copy these two lines here, and then we set this here. Then we can remove now. You can see again, this step is what can be thrown into a function because it is consistent. You will need it here, right? It's also here, and we're still going to need it there as well. So you can also break it into a function to make what your work a little bit what clean, right? And that's what we do as JavaScript engineers right there. So let's quickly see here. I think we might get something not defined, but let's see. I'm assuming we will be greeted with an error, but let's see. Okay, so it did not catch it. Did I do previous or next button? Look at me. Prev button, right? It's supposed to be what? Prev button is now supposed to be what? Enabled, right? Yeah, so we can say click here and what? Our prev is now what? Enabled. Our prev is now enabled right there. So again, for those who are listening and they are here, I think the next task is to click on previous to be able to fetch what, the previous information. I don't think we even need previous here, because if you look at the kind of pagination that we have, it is adding what, this kind of pagination, I don't know if you pay attention, it's like previous is even redundant here. This is supposed to just change to like a C more or something, because based on what we are doing here, all the URL here still contains all of the previous things. On this page now, I have like 40 records here. So this previous doesn't make sense. Or I mean, we can still make it make sense. At the end of the day, we are developers. So it means that what, we just delete the last operation, the last 20 LIs that is there, just delete them. I mean, that could be something, but again, pagination is, you know, a tricky thing, and then you are able to do it. Most of the time, see more button, one singular button would have been the best in that situation. A see more. So when you click on see more, like on Twitter, Twitter is just one button. When you click, you see more tweet, more tweet, more tweet, more tweet, like that. And there are other sites like that where it's just one button where you see them. There are also sites that, like GitHub, that list out the numbers of pagination. So, but at least, I don't know, this is, you know, I think a warm example for you to sort of, you know, wrap your head around for this operation. It's a warm example for you to wrap your head around for this operation here. So maybe we can call this a day though, and then we can, in the next extra lesson or something, we can try out, I think in the next extra class, I think what I'm thinking to do is that we can start using React to build out some of this cool stuff, paginations and all this stuff. And then we can also build WebSockets into this and be able to create a product. Because one thing we've not done is we're not able to create a product here. So maybe we can create a form, the side, and, you know, start being able to create a form on the side here. But I don't know if this has benefited you in any way. Have you learned one or two things though? Have you learned one or two things? And another thing is that this is just opening your eyes to, again, what the real thing is. Class is more like what the concept, but this is opening your eyes to see API calls here, next page, pagination, making API calls, creating the product. So when we want to create a product, what are you thinking about now? There will be a form that people can submit, or there will be a form that people can fill, right? And all of that magic there that can happen there. So do we have any question before we bring the whole thing to a close? Any question before we bring the whole thing to a close? By force, I'll take one question. At least there must be one question. At least one thing. Somebody should say one thing. Even if it's not a question, somebody should please say one thing. Maybe one thing to do would have been to update. One thing to do would have been to update the one thing to do would have been to update. Should we update the? I think let me look for this project. It's a project on Vercel. I know it should be on Vercel, and I kept it on Vercel though. So if I check Vercel, we should see it on Vercel. I think it's this one here. So what I'm going to do is if I just push to GitHub, I believe if I just push to GitHub, if I just do git status, yeah, because it's connected to that already. I do git just g new more features and all that, and then it's going to push that. So that should trigger a new build. It should trigger a new build on this one. It should trigger a new build here. If it's this one, it did not. I think so. It did not. Or did it? Okay, just now it did. Just now it did. So if I check the URL, there must be a URL for this project somewhere here. So if you click on extra class.vercel here, okay. So you click on next here, right? I mean, it's not bad. It looks ugly though. It looks extremely ugly, but it's like basic stuff. I'm thinking of styling it, just styling it there. Styling it there. So you can see that it makes the API call, it fetches all the new thing that is fetched there, here. But those, I don't think, how many of us have experience with hosting before? Those who were, how many persons have experience with hosting before? You've hosted something on maybe Vercel or Netlify before. Maybe in one of our major class, I should probably show us how hosting sort of would work, right? How I hosted. This one was hosted. Yeah, this one was hosted with my terminal. I think I told us now I use terminal to host this one. I think I have Vercel CLI, right? If I call Vercel CLI here, Vercel help, Vercel version or something here. So I'm using Vercel CLI, right? It's what I used here. So again, I push to GitHub with my CLI, and then I create the deploy with Vercel deploy, and it handles everything for me straight up there. But I think in one of our major class next, we should show how to properly host our project. I think we can bring the whole thing to a close. Even me, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. Anybody who's going to say something before we just, can somebody just unmute and say anything? 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 Just going to unmute and say.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, that work. So I look forward to stop the recording, and once the recording is available, I'm just going to upload it.
Hold on, sir.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ayo.
Your wealth of knowledge is always blowing me away.
No.
And I also know, I understand. It starts from somewhere. Not blowing me, trying to make me understand that yes, all of these things are really possible. Eye-opening session.